And so his work really helped me in this process of learning what it felt like in moment to moment when an emotion arises to actually lean into it instead of resist it. So I wanted to answer a question that came up recently from somebody that's in our ketamine, spirituality, chakra, breathwork Facebook group. And she had asked what my thoughts were on what seems to be two sort of maybe opposing beliefs of in the spiritual community, in the inner growth, inner healing community, which is, are we supposed to feel our emotions to move through them and to heal them? Or are we supposed to just change our brains and our ways of thinking and become somebody else and not go back and rehash and go through all of that old stuff because it doesn't really matter. You just have to reprogram your mind to become a different person. So she asked this question, but it's asked a lot actually. And in my previous online program that I worked with women on clearing their chakra system, this was something that we talked about a lot. Because when you are out there in the spiritual community or inner growth, healing, all the different kinds of healing modalities, you will hear people talk about shadow work, or you'll hear people talk about somatic work, or you know, even if you're just familiar with talk therapy, that's a form of that. And then on the other side, you will hear certain teachers talk about, one of them being Dr. Joe Dispenza is a really popular one, talking about neuroplasticity and your brain's ability to change and becoming somebody else by changing your thoughts and your behaviors, and not necessarily going back to the past or not rehashing it, not reliving it. You see this a lot in like the positive thinking community and affirmations, and just positively think your way to a better life and a better self. And so, like I said, this question is really common and it's asked a lot. And my opinion is based on my own personal experience. You know, I mean, I think that's all we can ever offer anybody is our own personal experience. And then also working with other people and being a mentor for the last 5 years and helping people on their own spiritual path. So for me, it's not a black and white answer. For me, it's both. I think that you have to do both. There's a couple caveats that I want to say to that. So number one, the reason my journey started, my spiritual awakening started with doing the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza and meditation, and really learning about neuroplasticity and the brain's ability to change, and thinking new thoughts to create a new reality, and becoming somebody different than the default self, basically the automatic personality that I wasn't awake to. It was just based on like previous thoughts and beliefs and imprints from when I was a child. And so for me, that's how my journey started. It was with meditation and really starting my own internal process, my own intuitive process for how I was applying this every single day in my life to grow. And my life changed. My life completely changed. I stopped cold turkey a 10-year pain pill addiction. I left a really dysfunctional marriage. I met the love of my life. I started a online program where I was guiding people and helping people, pretty much living out my dream. It was something I always wanted to do. So my life changed dramatically. And then that was, for the first like 3 years or so. And then it was my turn to go down into the shadows, to go down into my body. And this first started when I actually learned about breath work. And the reason why I loved breath work so much, as opposed to only doing meditation, is it felt like breath work I was really working in the somatic body. I was really working with releasing suppressed and stored emotion, which is energy. Energy is emotion and movement, basically. And what I realized was that I had to also work within the body, within my shadow self. And I couldn't just eradicate these deeper sides of me. I had to actually be with them and ultimately love them. But I couldn't love them if I didn't give them the space to be, and unless I actually was willing to meet these deeper, some could say darker parts of myself, but more wounded parts of myself. This is also known as inner child work. And I think it's all necessary. I think that personal growth and spiritual growth isn't linear. It doesn't go in one line. I think that there's phases that you go through and cycles that you go through. For sure, I've noticed that in my own journey, is that I have to honor these cycles. And that I believe truly that if we aren't willing to really feel our emotions that we've suppressed, we can do as much meditation or retraining the brain as we want, but we'll never, ever, ever be able to integrate or embody that into our life because we're not moving into our body. There is, like I said, a caveat to this where I think is really the distinction between, well, should I not focus on it and just, create a new life, or should I, feel the feelings that are coming up? And here's where I think the distinction is. You can and should allow yourself to really feel emotions that have been suppressed when they're coming up. However, this doesn't mean that you have to attach to the story. That is where I think is the big distinction between the two, between allowing the somatic release of the emotion that you never really allowed yourself the space to really feel it fully. So allowing your body the space to really go deep into these emotions that you have suppressed while not listening to the story of them. So when you are, maybe something's coming up, some deep triggers coming up, and you can feel, emotions are rising and you can just feel it on the surface. I feel it like on the surface of my skin. I don't try to figure out, okay, when did this start? Where is it from? I don't try to figure any of that out in my mind. I simply give my body the space to feel the emotion. Now, this requires a big amount of awareness. And this also requires knowing yourself really, really, really well. You really have to do the work of knowing who you are, knowing when the ego shows up, knowing when the old patterns show up, knowing your mind, and when your mind wants to give in to victimization stories and, well, why did this happen to me? Or, all of those things. You can, like I said, really allow yourself to express and feel the emotions from when you were 5 years old, that just intense fear or sadness or depression or not feeling worthy or whatever it is that's stuck in there, the trauma that is, it does live in your body, by the way. It does not just live in your mind. It lives in your body. So you have to know when you have to give yourself the space to feel those, and when you need to change a thought pattern. You have to get really familiar with this. So for example, if I am working on abundance, let's say, I have to notice when I'm having thoughts arise, like, see, this is always what happens, or how am I going to create that money, or I'm never going to be able to make it ahead, or these bills always come, or like all these stories that really stem from victimization, because that's what our ego does. It's just because we're unconscious to it. It's nothing that we should beat ourselves up over. We should never do that. That should never be the process of internal growth. We have internal growth. We have to treat ourselves like a child that's learning to walk. And if you were helping a child learn to walk, you wouldn't be yelling at it if it fell down in the process. Be encouraging he or she, be loving the child through the process. So we have to give ourselves that same grace to really have patience with ourselves and love ourselves through this process. So if I'm having those belief patterns show up for me, that is absolutely when I need to really be working in meditation to reprogram new belief systems. I have to be willing to look at, where did I get these lack belief systems from, and journaling on them, getting really clear in meditation. Where did these start from, and how can I re-imprint more empowering belief systems and thought patterns so that I then can start acting like a person who has abundance and prosperity and behaving in that way? So you have to catch those thought patterns when they come up throughout the day. That is when it is vitally important that you do this rewiring and re-imprinting and letting go of the old stories without beating yourself up, without saying, gosh, I should know better. Gosh, why haven't I got this down yet? Like, none of that is helpful in the inner growth journey, I promise you. So you have to know in those moments when you need to reprogram it. I always use the example of traffic because, number one, my husband is, he has a trigger with traffic. And number two, it's just a really like soft, easy example. Not a lot of triggers around that. But let's say, if you find yourself getting frustrated or angry in traffic a lot, in those moments of traffic where you're like, God damn it, and you're reacting and you're getting angry, those are the moments that you have to stop, pause, and go, okay, this is an old habitual thought pattern, behavior pattern. Like, I need to take this moment to stop, pause, reflect, and rewire. Do something different, react in a different way. So this is how you change it in those moments. However, if when you're doing some introspection and you're doing some contemplation on maybe where this anger stems from, and you decide, wow, there's a lot of fear that lives within the cells of my body. So maybe I need to do some breath work, or I need to go to a somatic practitioner to actually work with the emotion that's stored within the body. So they are two separate things. However, they must be in congruence, in my opinion, at my current level of consciousness, which may change tomorrow. But where I am currently at in my own personal journey, as I said, I don't believe it's one or the other. I believe it's both. I believe you have to work within the body, within the shadows. You cannot just positive think your way to a healed life. You're gonna have to heal those wounded parts of you that live within you that you believe are unlovable. And that's all the shadow work is about, and the inner child work is about, is allowing those pieces of you to come to the surface and be heard and be ultimately loved. Love is what's going to transcend all of that. For me, for a while, I thought, years into working with the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, I really, I created a new name for myself, and I really believed I could eradicate those parts of me that kept me from being happy and kept me from abundance and kept me from joy and kept me from living my best life. I thought I could eradicate them, until I really had to go deep down into the darkness and realize those parts didn't need to be eradicated. They needed to be loved and integrated, fully integrated into myself. Not shoved out or breathed out or whatever it was that I was trying to get rid of. I had to really, really fully love and accept all parts of myself. And that took some dark nights of the soul. It took massive releases within my body, giving myself the space to do that, having my body be the container of safety so that I could express these emotions safely without being stuck in the program of it or the victimization in it, but allowing myself to fully feel. And actually, the work that helped me a lot with this was Michael Singer. And if you read The Surrender Experiment and The Untethered Soul, he talks about the very simple process of allowing these deeper sanskaras, as he calls them, to come to the surface, let them move through you without being attached, and then they can really let go. They're not being stuffed and held down in your body, which will eventually cause disease. And so his work really helped me in this process of learning what it felt like in moment to moment when an emotion arises, to actually lean into it instead of resist it. Because actually, for most of us, many of the time, when emotions come to the surface, we resist them. And the resistance is what keeps them there. We don't give them the space to be because we're terrified and we don't want to feel them. We haven't wanted to feel them for a very, very, very long time. And so we shove them back down, but they're always still there underneath the surface. And so, like I said, his work really helped me with a very simple process of literally just when feelings come up throughout the day or emotions come up throughout the day, to actually lean into them and not to stay stuck in them. Again, either side of the spectrum you can get lost in. I promise I have. It's for me, it's about balance, harmony, and alignment. That is really the key to your own personal freedom, I believe, is really finding the balance between the two. So not getting lost in the shadow work, because if you're always looking for something to heal, you will always find it. You can get lost there. I did for 2 years. I got lost in the shadow and needing to feel everything. And then I forgot about underneath all that human stuff is really who I truly am beyond this human meat suit, which is a spirit, which is a soul, which is much bigger than the ego mind or the human mind. However, I'm the human mind too. I'm both. And so I really have to practice being both of those things. And it's not an easy practice, but it's something for me that has been the deepest practice so far to really achieve true freedom and peace, inner peace and balance and alignment. And so I'm not just seeking, to be seen or seeking to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in my bank account. I'm actually seeking to be more of my truest self every single day. I'm actually seeking inner peace, even if there is chaos in my life. I'm seeking to be able to serve, like truly serve people from a deeper well, from my soul, and not just a human self. So for me, balance has been huge. And like I said, you can get lost in both. So I think it's important to know you don't want to get lost in the feeling. And a tool that you can use to help you with this is something that I used to offer, like I said, the women that I worked with in the previous program I did. When you're first learning this and you don't really know yourself as well, a really great tool is setting an alarm. So that means if you can feel that something's on the surface, and a lot of times the other indicator of this, of when you actually need to release emotion or when you need to feel your feelings, is a lot of times this happens when nothing is really happening in your outer world to cause it. It's just like this deep sense of like, I'm feeling something come to the surface. I'm feeling something rise. I'm so in tune with it now. I can feel it like I have to take a shit. Like I feel it on the surface of my skin, like, oh, some feelings and some energy need to move through me. And this is, I use breath work for this. And I use meditation to calm my mind. But anyway, so you can set an alarm. Let's say you're feeling some things on the surface and you're feeling some feelings that before you wouldn't want to feel, you'd want to shove back down. And so you can give yourself an alarm, set yourself an alarm. Maybe it's 3 days and you say, okay, for the next 3 days, I'm just going to allow myself to feel whatever I'm feeling, to cry, to get angry, to be sad, like whatever emotion is arising to the surface, I'm going to give myself space to feel those, because the reason why we're afraid, we think they're going to last forever, and they won't. The emotions will pass right through us if we give them the space to do so. And in that, when we start releasing those, then the process of rewiring and meditation is so much more effective and impactful. You can do that because you're not weighed down in your lower energy centers, in your root and your sacral, by that really dense emotion like shame and fear and guilt that you're holding in your body. You can really let those go. And you let those go, you literally become lighter. So you have more access to your third eye and to your crown, to your intuition and your higher self and your creativity. So set the alarm for 3 days and say, 3 days, I'm gonna let myself go. So that's a really great tool. I hope you guys got some value from this. Let me know in the comments if it makes sense, or if you have any other questions around this. What has been your process? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I hope that helped, and I hope you can take some of it and apply it. Love you all.